Hello to you all. You're watching a special program on the celebration of the 12 nations, nationalities and peoples day that actually happened in the state of Afar in Samara town, and our man on the ground was Seleshi Damso. Seleshi joins me here in the studio to tell us about the vibe and the situation in there. So don't go anywhere. I'm Abraham Assad with the special program. To start our conversation, I just like to know what the vibe was like, because you are on the ground there, you've been witnessing everything happening in there. So tell us about the vibe.
You travel like more than 500 kilometers to the northeast of Ethiopia to find Afar state. That is the cradle of humanity, where Lucy or Dinkinesh, all the people across the world originated from. Once you are there, you can witness, you are right at the place where you belong to. Actually, this time, Samara was the center state to host the 12th edition of Ethiopian Nations, Nationalities and Peoples Day. That really went so peacefully and so hotly, and it was a very mesmerizing and very appealing, I can say, event that attracts Ethiopian peoples from east to west and from north to south, all gathering and coming together, enjoying their diversity through unity.
Okay, I take it that as a person who have faced everything in there, seen everything in there, you have encountered some things. Would you like to tell us what you have encountered, and if those things are somehow memorable for you? Tell us about those encounters you have.
Sure. Something that takes your attention is to see Ethiopian sons and daughters to gather from across the country and come together to reaffirm their commitment to enjoy the various diversities they enjoy. Like you can have cultural, linguistic, and religious and gender and whatsoever diversities are there. So you can find Ethiopians that flock from different parts to a center stage to express their differences through unity. So it's a kind of once in a lifetime experience to see your fellow people to gather and express their whatsoever feeling, especially the feeling of freedom and democracy in a stage that's meant to promote and foster such values, I could say.
Okay, I take it the celebration was in a way grand, because leaders of neighboring states alongside their delegations were in that state, in that town, in the town of Samara actually, like President of Djibouti, President of Sudan, a Deputy Prime Minister of Somalia were in there on the day. So what was their reaction to be part of that beautiful day, I can say?
Sure. To remind you, ISNAF was the first time, I could say, for President Omar Hassan Ahmed al-Bashir of the Sudan and President Ismail Omar Guelleh of Djibouti to attend this grand celebration. They were part and parcel of this event that really happened in Ethiopia before this round of the celebration. So Sudanese President Omar Hassan Ahmed al-Bashir said Ethiopia's constitution is the basis for the different changes that is happening in the country. So it could be a benchmark for African sisters and brothers to emulate the best experiences and achieve the very changes many Africans aspire to attain at the end of the day. So Abraham, let's have a look into what President Omar Hassan al-Bashir has to say.
All right.
نجدد اليوم اللقاء في هذا الحدث العظيم.
We are here to celebrate with the great people of Ethiopia the achievement of the constitution that lays the foundation for the unity of these great people. By so doing, Ethiopia has become a model for all African countries in achieving peace and unity. This is visible in the rapid economic growth that led to the fulfillment of the aspiration of the Ethiopian people for stability and prosperity.
The President of Sudan was passionate about the family ties, the relationships between the people of the two countries, and he had a reflection on those relations between the two countries. How about you tell us about those reflections that he had?
Definitely. President Omar Hassan al-Bashir was so emphatic in emphasizing the very deep-rooted Ethio-Sudanese people-to-people ties. He reaffirmed the gathering in Samara Stadium that the people of Ethiopia and Sudan do enjoy long-standing family relations, I could say. So it's a very important time now to nurture that family ties between Ethiopia and Sudan, and as the two people share the same destiny of winning over poverty and transforming to prosperity. So we can take that family ties as a basis for the two peoples and for the two countries to embark on such groundbreaking foundations and achieve the very aspirations they want to attain, and in taking out their millions of people out of poverty. Let's have a look into what the President has to say regarding the Ethio-Sudanese people-to-people and the family ties.
All right.
الأخ رئيس الوزراء الإخوة الكرام إن السودان
As Sudan embraces the ancient histories that brings our peoples and countries together, which has resulted in sustainable family ties between the two, confirms that enhancing strategic relations with Ethiopia remains our continuous and great target. This will positively impact the relations of our two peoples, given that the renaissance of Ethiopia is the renaissance of Sudan and vice versa.
President Omar Hassan al-Bashir was also determined to focus on the Ethio-Sudanese economic integration and cooperation. And he also said the very economic model Ethiopia and Sudan follow, particularly in the Horn of Africa region, could be emulated to the rest of Africa, and it can be a best practice for the rest of the continent to emulate. And he said what Ethiopia actually is doing currently as a very vibrant intervention in many forms, so that it could be scaled up in the rest of the region and the continent as a whole, so that there will be like a balanced growth here and there throughout the continent. So let's have what the President has to say regarding Ethio-Sudanese economic integration and cooperation.
All right, all right.
دولة الأخ رئيس الوزراء لا تفوتني الإشارة.
It is worth mentioning that the lifting up of economic sanctions will have positive impact in promoting the relations of our two countries, politically and economically, through the enforcement of joint collaboration for the welfare of our peoples and countries. We will work for the benefit of our people through large projects that would be supported at the highest level, so that they will be a real foundation to attain economic collaboration and integration that will be a model in the region and in all Africa.
These East African nations have a lot in common in terms of economic integration and other relations. Like we can talk about the relationship they have in terms of infrastructural development, and we can see what is happening in this region, and this could be somehow a vibrant experience to be actually scaled upon. So it's a very great thing that these projects are being supported, roads are being constructed to connect these East African nations, and this is a great thing, a great sign that these nations have interconnection and different things.
Look, we earlier said that Ethiopia and Sudan do enjoy a very strong people-to-people ties. So the very river Nile is there that intertwines the bonds of the two peoples. So having the Nile there, it's at the end of the day, the fate of the two people, either to harness the river or whatsoever. So if they harness the river and make other infrastructural developments for our mutual benefits, like road infrastructure, or we could say railways, and using ports together and developing border areas and whatsoever, and cooperating in investment and trade and business and whatsoever. So this will be the fate of the two countries to as I earlier said, to lift up millions of people out of poverty and change the lives of people for the better. So there are a lot of commonalities the people of Sudan and Ethiopia enjoy regarding culture, regarding religion and whatsoever, and most particularly regarding natural resources in a very particular sense, I could say River Nile.
All right.
The other neighboring countries that sent its delegation to Ethiopia's Nations Day celebration was Somalia. It delegated its Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Mahdi Ahmed Guled. I think it is the first time for the Deputy Prime Minister to attend such grand events. He was really so mesmerized, and he was so happy and pleased to be a part and parcel of such grand celebrations that Ethiopians from all over the country come together and enjoy.
He has delivered a speech too during this the celebration. So any particular thing that you want to mention about his speech?
I mean, he was so, I could say, inspired to see people coming out like in many numbers and enjoy commonalities despite their differences. I earlier told you we do enjoy different varieties of backgrounds like cultural, religious, gender, whatsoever, ethnicity and linguistic. Despite all these differences, we could see Ethiopians flocking to a center stage and enjoying their unity despite their differences. So he was taken to have witnessed that people can be together despite all the differences they might have in whatever way. So let's have a look at what Mr. Guled has to say.
All right.
I am happy to join you today for the celebration of the 12th Nations, Nationalities and Peoples Day, one of this country's most important annual events. This day is in essence a celebration of the diversity of Ethiopia, but equally importantly, it is a day celebrating your citizens' ownership of the Constitution that articulates how they are governed and enshrines their inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is also an expression of peace, democracy, tolerance, and acceptance between and among the different ethnic groups and peoples of Ethiopia. A shining example demonstrating unity that embraces the diversity of your nation, but it culturally, religion, linguistic, or ethnicity. This is a day, I believe, which shows Ethiopia's maturity, openness, and democracy. Today, Ethiopia shows the world, and in particular other African nations, that celebrating diversity is its strength. The diversity of this country's nations, nationalities, and peoples enhanced equality and mutual cooperation, and that is a cornerstone in safeguarding common interests of this nation.
The Deputy Prime Minister also assured Ethiopians that the relationship and the solidarity between Ethiopians and Somalians to continue, I think.
Look, Somalia is also a country in the East African bloc that pursues federal system of governance. So the Deputy Prime Minister was here to assure of his country's and governments and people's commitment and determination to work hand in glove with the Ethiopian government and the people, so that as they cooperate to win over any challenge that the East African bloc and the rest of the continent, of course, might face, it could be a reality for them to come into achievement once they bring their hands together and work for the common good and the common goal of the people of Africa.
All right. That's what he has to say again.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
On this day, the people of Somalia join you in celebrating your unity, ratification of your constitution, and your achievements in the last decades of progress. It is your constitution which I am privileged to study in a successive 2 complete semesters, which provides the incubator that has helped your country to flourish and overcome your nation's deep-rooted problems and turn it to benefit all your citizens equally. First, among these is the respect for diversity as enshrined in the Constitution, which provides wider protection, not only personal rights, but also group rights. Somalia acknowledges the tremendous progress Ethiopia has made and its fast economic growth. The recent economic transformation of Ethiopia has made the country an ideal place for foreign direct investment.
The Deputy Prime Minister also reminded of the gathering there, Ethiopia's role in stabilizing the Horn and the rest of the continent. As you might know, Ethiopia is steadfast in sharing what it has to stabilize the rest of the continent. Once it has maintained peace and security and stability within its hinterland, it's committed to do what it takes to make the rest of the continent as peaceful and stable as possible. We can mention Somalia, or we can mention Sudan, like Darfur. We can also mention South Sudan and Burundi, Liberia, whatsoever. So it stretched its hands long there and lend its hands for the peace and stability of the people of the world, I can say. So he was also grateful for Ethiopia for having contributed its share, and it is still, of course, contributing its share to keep the Horn of Africa and the rest of the continent peaceful and stable.
Actually, this thing is recognized by the international community. Now that he supports it and he actually confirms this thing, this is one step forward too.
Let's listen to what Mr. Guled has said regarding Ethiopia's military achievement within its hinterland, the surrounding area, the Horn, and the rest of the continent.
We acknowledge Ethiopia's steadfast commitment to make country in order to bring about peace and rid ourselves of extremist groups whose sole wish is to bring death and destruction to Somalia, the Horn of Africa, and beyond. Therefore, we are truly humbled by the brotherly support from our Ethiopian brothers in ensuring peace, progress, and development is attained in Somalia. The people and government of Somalia remain grateful to Ethiopia's contribution to AMISOM. We, the Somali citizens, acknowledge the positive role Ethiopia plays in steering Intergovernmental Authority for Development, IGAD, and its continuous support to Somalia's peace-building process. Distinguished participants, allow me to finally wish you best of luck in your endeavors and great deliberations. Thank you, and may God bless you. Badam Amasa Ganalo.
Of course, we have the Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn. He was one of the keynote speakers, and it's expected that it was a great event that he has to attain it. And he actually mentioned and talked about the rationale behind celebrating this day.
Sure. To give you a sense of why December 8th is marked every year, it is a day when the new Ethiopian constitution was ratified. It's actually 23 years before that the new Ethiopian constitution came to being. So it is so historic and memorable for Ethiopians to mark this day, as this grand document is a document that guaranteed freedom, democracy and right and whatsoever for the various peoples that make the country a unified nation. Let's look into what the Prime Minister has to say regarding the event.
All right.
በዛሬዋ ታሪካዊ ዕለት የተገናኘነው የሀገራችን ብሔሮች ብሔረሰቦችና ሕዝቦችን አንድነት
We met on this historic day to cement the unity of the people of our country on a strong foundation. It is also to mark the 23rd anniversary of the ratification of our constitution, which protected the country from disintegration and guaranteed freedom, equality and democratic rights. The day has a unique meaning for Ethiopians as we declared ownership to the new constitution. The day is an auspicious occasion when we started the long journey to build a unified politico-economic society.
at this juncture, while addressing the crowd, the Prime Minister was very vocal in fighting fundamentalism that would hamper as a very multifaceted change Ethiopia is making over the years. Look, Ethiopia is making tremendous changes politically, economically, socio-culturally, and whatsoever. So having these changes, of course, these changes have been recognized by international organizations like the IMF and the World Bank and whatsoever. Having this track record on hand, this trajectory on hand, it's not without force. There are some elements that want to destabilize and dismantle the very change Ethiopia is enjoying right now. So the PM was so vocal in fighting fundamentalism and keep the country as strong and reliable as possible.
Actually, yeah, this is a hard-won victory. We don't need to let it go that easy with the interruption, with the provocation of these fundamentalists. And he must be that direct about it, and it's the right thing to do that.
Rightly said. So here is what the Prime Minister has to say regarding fighting fundamentalism.
All right.
አክራሪዎች ጠባቦችና ትምክህተኞች
Extremists, narrow-minded elements and chauvinists conspire to undermine the big victory we have on our hand. People across the four corners of the country speak loud and clear that they won't hand over the victory they achieved. Therefore, we need to tell those who wish our failure that our system isn't fragile and the new Ethiopia isn't built on sand. Our destination is forming great and prosperous state on a strong foundation. Such state formation wouldn't be realized overnight. As such, we need to work in unison with patience and passion.
Haile Mariam also, I think, attached a very prime importance on the changing environments in the country, the change in politics, the change in the economic situation of the country over the last 2 decades. And this not only encouraged the environment, the circumstance that is happening in the country, but it encouraged the whole system in the country. So he talked about it, and there is some element from his speech about it, and let's listen about those things.
Sure, yeah.
አገራችን ላለፉት 27 ዓመታት በርካታ ድሎችን አስመዝግባለች።
Our country has had registered plenty of victories over the previous 27 years. The achievements have economic, social, and political aspects. On this historic day, it is vital to look back to those victories. Our economy's double-digit growth over the past 15 years has won international recognition. In the social aspect, though we have gone far away, we still need to work hard to employ graduates. The government is committed to empower the youth, and youngsters are supposed to make use of every available opportunity. Politically, hate and suspicious approach is changing into negotiation and collaboration. Nonetheless, there are still political forces that prefer hate and suspicion to dismantle the change our country is enjoying. To deal with such gaps, we work with our people and make Ethiopia our common home. Ethiopia is a peaceful state thanks to its peace-loving people. Apart from ensuring internal peace, we are playing our part to ensure peace in conflict-driven areas.
It's pretty known that Ethiopia is home to heterogeneous people that share diverse cultures, traditions, linguistics, religions, and whatsoever. However, their differences is there, they do cherish communalities as their destiny is bound together. So the Prime Minister was so vocal to advise Ethiopians to keep the unity, as such events are grand celebrations that do manifest the very unity Ethiopians used to have and nurture right now and for so many years to come. So he was also vocal in advising his people to keep their culture and whatsoever intact and transfer them for posterity and keep the strength and sovereignty of their nation. As they are together, they are strong and they can win over anything that comes otherwise.
All right.
Yeah. So let's look into what the Prime Minister has to say regarding the very diversity Ethiopians cherish through diversity and unity.
በአብሮነታችን አተረፈን እንጂ አላጎደልንም።
We have benefited a lot from our unity through diversity. If we keep our unity, the future will be by far bright and promising. At this juncture, I call on all Ethiopians with great respect to guard the constitution and the federal system, which is the basis for the peace and development we are enjoying and attain our renaissance.
I believe now we have a glimpse of the scenario, the situation that happened in there, and now we have understanding about the whole thing that went on in there. So who else was in attendance in there?
Well, Chief of Afar State, Haji Suyum Awal, of course, Chief of the host state, was in attendance, addressing his guests. The chief said, this grand day is a very unique opportunity for the people of Afar in particular and of Ethiopians in general that give rise to freedom, democracy, and the right to develop and the right to change and make their own decisions. So he focused on the very emancipation his people enjoyed due to the emergence of Nations Day. That really came out from the grand document, the Constitution, and Speaker of the House of Federation, Yala Obata, also advised the gathering to be vigilant and guardians of the grand document, the Constitution, as it is a very document that binds the destiny of Ethiopians. So these were some of the guests that were in attendance in the event. Well, dear viewers, this wraps up our special program on ABC. Hope you have enjoyed the show and do join us next time for yet another edition. It's goodbye from me, Sulesh Demso, and my colleague Abraham Masrat, along with the entire studio crew here at ABC. Goodbye for now.